All right, everybody. So welcome to the Deal Pro podcast. This is Jamel Gibbs. I'm your host. We have Anthony and DeAndre here again. Shooting a bunch of content for y'all, man. But we're going to switch it up a little bit. This is kind of business related, but not necessarily. More real life stuff that we want to talk about today. So I was talking to Anthony about bringing work home, right? So in my situation, my office is home, right? In Anthony's situation, he brings, you have an office. You have an office,
yeah,
right? And then you are married, but you don't have any kids. So we both have kids, but you don't.
I'm hybrid.
You're hybrid.
So
right?
sometimes I go out to the client, and many times I'm working from home in my home office.
So my question to you is, do you bring work home with you? Like, how do you separate the two, man?
Oh man. So I think it's fairly easy for me to separate it simply because my wife isn't really. She's like, insurance is complicated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, now bear in mind, she actually does charge reviewing and stuff like that. So she works on the insurance side, but it's just a different segment of it. So she's like, that's just too much. So we don't really have a lot of ongoing conversations about insurance. I think the hardest part for me, as far as measuring it from a time perspective, is I have a ton of fun, like doing what I do. Like speaking to all the people who call in, so many new experiences, so many people to be exposed to, and so many different time zones now, which I wasn't used to previously, that I lose track of time. Right. And then I'm like, I gotta have an admin day now because I'm just like in the zone with the people until, Wednesday. And then normally that's my admin day. And, I'm trying to catch up on any application I need to turn in or any requirements to fit for the insurance companies and things like that. So normally our relationship, what I've been forced to do is block off more time in my calendar to enforce time with my wife, right? So that I'm not like...
That's not easy to do though, man.
It's not easy. It is not easy. Especially like when you're like, oh man, if I get this handled, then, I could be doing this and But, it's like from a standpoint of actually working, when I'm dealing with people, insurance is such a family-oriented thing. And it's like, me personally, you got to have your family together in order to do it effectively. Right. You have to understand the nuances of how things affect people. And so for me, I'm just like, okay, well, no more meetings after this time. Or on this day, this is you. Or date night is this night, right? In order to just kind of enforce myself, being like, they can't even book a time on my calendar for this time. And that's kind of been what I've been doing. Similar to, if you went to a restaurant has open hours.
Yeah.
And I had to force myself to understand that because, beforehand, especially if you're new in the business, you don't understand the concept of open hours at all.
You just talking about that in the car,
right?
Man.
You just like, I got to get it. I gotta do what I gotta do. I gotta do what I gotta do. But after you become established, it's like, no, I don't work after this time. And I don't work on weekends. Or I don't work on such and such. Like, this is for her. This is for us, right? So that has paid its dividends because as I've been growing as an entrepreneur and doing different things, you natively get more support when they feel satisfied. So to me, it's not something I plan on changing anytime soon. And I try not to take on more than what I can handle. In order to make sure that, she still gets what she needs.
I don't know if y'all know, man, but I got a series with my wife called Married to an Entrepreneur.
It's not easy.
Right? And let me tell you this, man. So we do videos together sometimes.
Yeah,
we film right here.
Yeah.
But what I realized is I had to literally like cut because especially when you're building a business, right? There's no such thing as time off. Right, and that's what I want everybody to understand, right? So my first probably 10 years in the business, I did really well, but not necessarily saying that my family suffered because we didn't. Still always made that dinner time, like I told you, in the car. But really when you're building a business, man, it's like 24 hours, 7 days a week. No such thing as sleep.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you're going all in. Right? And that's just how I treated things. I was young, and you know, I had the energy to do it. Now my kids are getting a little older. Like I was telling you, man, I just make sure I take that time. They come to my office. Again, I work from home, so it's kind of difficult to separate work from home. But I make sure to have, like you said, allotted times for certain things. So like every Friday, my wife and I, we go salsa dancing. We've been doing it for 4 months. Yeah, you didn't know that, right? So yeah, we get it in, man.
A little shimmy,
A little bit. You know, we get
you
the
don't know
salsa.
how to counting on salsa.
It is.
Yeah, you gotta do math.
Yeah. You know, so we do ballroom dancing.
Okay.
You know, like merengue and tango and the waltz and
The waltz.
yeah, we doing the waltz and we doing,
that's three. That's three.
Yeah, we doing
steps.
multiple.
Yeah.
Yeah, the waltz is easy, man. And you know, we do some bachata, you know, merengue, you know, all kinds of.
Okay.
But our main core dancing right now is salsa, and we also do like the West Coast swing. You know what I mean? So that's you know, it's fun.
So no
we
crip
got
walk. No crip walk.
no crip walk.
Okay, all right. Cool.
Even though we could.
Yeah,
right now.
A little bit.
No, but so you know, that's kind of how I gotta allot the time.
Right.
And then, you know, so we eat out a lot, admittedly. We got 5 kids, man. So, it's, you know, I'm not expecting my wife to have to cook dinner every single night.
Right.
So we do spend time with each other at a restaurant, at a dinner table, put our phones away, etc. You know, so like I know Wednesday nights are the coaching calls. So I got help with, you know, really high quality coaches. Deal Pro Accelerator program, check it out.
Deal Pro.
So, so we got high quality coaching to help me with coaching
And balance it all.
right. So I can put some of my coaching calls off to, you know, the coaches because we're building. You know, it's a business.
Yeah.
You know, it starts off with me obviously, but then you can't do everything yourself. It's only one of me. So I know that's Wednesday night. If I need to operate that, then I'll do that. I don't watch a lot of TV. You know, we got, you know, things going on Tuesday night, Bible study. So I don't really do anything on Tuesday. So what I effectively done over the last, you know, 5 years or so is I'll cut off Tuesdays, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I only work 3 days a week.
Nice.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And because I know Friday, I'm giving that to my wife. And then Friday night, you know, we don't even have the kids. So what we did was we took our 14-year-old daughter, and she stays with the 2 younger ones. Even though Alyssa is still there
Yeah.
after work, we still have her to help, but I pay. And now what I do is I pay the 10-year-old to do chores during the time that we're not there. So we got 2 kids making money.
Hit
That's
that
great.
right off. Hit that right off.
You know what I mean? Hit the write-off, man. That's right. We got 1 kid babysitting, 1 kid doing chores and making some money.
Yeah.
The older kids kind of overseeing. You know, it's a business, man. Like I told you,
Yeah.
it's management, man. Then we got the 2 younger ones just running around scrapping and all
Scribble,
scrabble on the walls, man.
My man wide open still?
Wide open.
Wide open. He like your size but miniature.
Yeah, pretty. But that's what we do, man. That's how I'm able to separate it. Just consciously not answering the phones because you know, I love my coaching clients, man. I really do, and I appreciate them very much. But sometimes you got to cut it off. You know, so
Well, you know, there's a common sort of, you know, theme I'm hearing, and I've had to learn this too, which is that I remember starting out too, right? And you do everything to get the job done, and you sacrifice a lot of things, and your mentors say you got to block time for yourself, right? Or the things that are important.
and you're like,
to you.
what's that?
You're like, what are you talking about? Like, no way. I'm not
grinding.
like, there's no way I'm going to give up a second because I don't know if this is going to work or not
That's
unless
right.
I give my all, right?
That was my mentality too, man.
And I get that. And the mentors will say that's how people get burned out.
Yeah.
Right.
I've been burned out twice. That's
right?
a whole nother podcast.
And that's the thing, right? But that's when you see people get burned out and quit altogether,
Yeah.
right? Because they're just completely done and it's drained everything from them. I've not listened to people that said that, right? At the same time, when you're new and green, at least in the mortgage business, you think you have to, you have people that you're relying on to provide referrals to you, right? And you think you have to do everything that they say so that they'll send you the referral, right? Instead of knowing that your business is solid enough to set expectations for others about how you're going to work your business, right? And so, and a lot of people, when they're new, make those sacrifices, and even people who are seasoned, tend to do that. But a lesson that I had to learn was that I need to be so great at my business that I have the ability to set the terms of how I'm going to run it, right? And I had this conversation with some people that I mentor and coach too, just last week, where I was like, listen, guys, like, you've got this person coming in, and they are asking these things of you, and now you're coming to me to fix it for you, right? Mm-hmm. And what I help them, kind of work through and give them advice is like, look, like, do you know the procedure for how you're going to work? Like, do you know exactly what your process is? And like, well, we kind of do this. It's like, no.
That's really the problem, though, man. Because like when you're building your business, you don't have a procedure. Your procedure is to make money.
It's to make money, right?
You know what I mean?
So what happened was that they kind of wish-washed on their process, and I said, well, okay, if you're not solid on your process, if you don't know exactly what you're doing, then anyone else that comes in with a problem, right, is going to have influence over how you run your business or how you run your job.
That's right.
Right. And so the advice I gave was, if you can get really clear on your process, then anyone else that comes in and says, hey, can you do it my way? You're like, no, I know the best way to do my job. Yeah. Right. And here's how I'm going to do it. And you're going to get the absolute best service from it. And here's why. Right. So I think part of it is knowing how you're going to run your business, but also doing a really good job of setting expectations for others, right? And that's a hard thing to do too, because what you have to do, you got to push back on people that want you to do things a certain way while still having their commitment with you too. And so there's people who are scared about that, and some people haven't built that skill set. And so you're like, oh, if I don't do exactly what you want, then I might lose you, right? Well, I never want to lose a client. I never want to lose a relationship. But if someone isn't going to respect the way that I do business, right, then and I'll move them forward, like, set, like, here's how we do it, here's why we do it. What I find is, if I don't do a good job of explaining why the process is the way it's supposed to be and how it's good for them, then I threaten losing, right?
So you got to have standard operating procedures.
But standard operating procedures, you got to be able to communicate it to other people in a way that they understand why it's to their benefit. And if you can do that, then they're usually on board. Like, I don't lose people anymore, because it's like, here, look, I know that you'd prefer that I do it this way, but here's the thing. Here's my operation. Here's my process, right? And here's why that's better for you. And then they're usually completely on board.
How do you control that? How do you control bringing that? So you got these things.
So how does that relate to?
How does that tie in with bringing that home, bringing work home? So,
good question, because I didn't actually address that, did I? So I think about that, and if I don't have standards for my professional life and my personal life, right?
There you go.
And I prioritize things, you get pulled everywhere, right? Because the reality is that if you're not clear with how you're going to function, people don't know. You can't expect them to know. So if you're not clear with how you're going to function and the way you're going to run your business, partitioning time for things that are priority and sticking to that, and then communicating that time block to other people who are going to be part of your business life. If you don't communicate that well, then they don't know. So they're going to call you after hours, right? They're going to expect that they can,
let me ask you this, man. So do you find yourself, even when you're home, thinking about work at some point?
That's another piece.
That's another piece.
So
man.
For one is like workload, right? If my workload is too great for the 10 hours I have at work, right, I'll wait until everyone's asleep. I'll do my work after. right? And that's a reality, right? But I don't mess with the time that I'm with my kids because I don't have a lot in the evenings.
Yeah.
And so I block that out and I don't answer the phone. But put my kids to bed. My wife's one that she also enjoys her sleep, so she goes to sleep kind of early. And so once everyone's asleep, that gives me time, if I still have work to do, to knock the work out. So that's different than, did the stresses from work come home with you, right? And so that's a different kind of reality. I don't take stresses home with me anymore, but I did for a long time.
To me, it's an emotional intelligence thing. I find that most of the time when a person isn't as knowledgeable as they should be, they're trying to supplement that knowledge with...
They make more sacrifices.
Burning. Making sacrifices. Because they think that every client is that one chance, right? Whereas, me, where I'm at, I'm like, okay, well, if you get to speak with me, it's a privilege.
Like once you know everything.
Like,
once you know everything.
Not that you know everything, but like, I'm very comfortable in my, in my skill set.
Your knowledge base.
Yeah. So I don't know. So here's a perfect example. Obviously, when it comes to what I do, I feel like I'm really, really good at it, right? But I'm also a creative thinker, right? So I'm always thinking about how can I make myself better. So, I'm not saying I'm not guilty of this, but because I am. I'll find myself in a movie theater or at dinner with my wife thinking about, man, I can, and I'll just get the bright idea because my brain is, how do you have that balance? Like, how do you find that balance? Because some people don't believe in balance.
Right.
So that's another, do you believe that you should have balance? And how do you find that balance to be able to separate the work from your personal life?
Well, the thing is, I think it depends on your priorities. There's some people that are go all the time, right? And there's some people that don't get out of that, right? And the dynamic, and I don't know what the dynamic of the relationship with their spouse is. And I don't want to pretend like I do, right?
True.
I know that in my relationship, it requires a balance, right? And so if theirs doesn't, then that's fine, right? But mine does. And I know that about ours. So for me, I have, there are times when I spend more time at work than I would prefer to, right? And maybe I've just grown or matured. There were certain points where I'd have fires at work, issues going on with files that I needed to fix. Part of that was kind of what you said before, which is that I hadn't learned the lessons on how to create an extremely clean file, so I had more files that were messy. That's going to happen with new loan officers, always.
Yeah.
And the pain points are really painful because, especially if you're doing purchase business, you've got a buyer, a buyer's realtor, a seller, a seller's realtor, and the title company that are all calling you 4 times a day asking for an update, right? And if you got a problem that you're trying to fix, or if you missed something on the front end, then and you don't know how to fix it, it's a really tough spot to be in, right? And now you're talking about someone who might lose their house, their deposit. It's a big deal and a very emotional experience. So for one, as you get better at your trade, right? As you get better at your knowledge base, I know what questions to ask. I know what things can go wrong because they've gone wrong before, right? And I didn't know that at that point. So for one, on the front end, I'm able to create an experience for myself as a loan officer and my clients that doesn't have all those issues, right? But when they do, I also, again, it comes back to setting expectations. I know how to set the expectation, right? I had a client the other day, and there was something that we found out about later on, right? Everything that I knew to ask, we covered. And sometimes there's some unknown thing that throws a wrench into a file, and it happened to be a purchase. It was like $1.2 million purchase, which is, regardless of the price point, like we were having challenges with it, right? And I had to call my client, the buyer, and I said, listen, I just want to let you know, because what happens is that they end up calling the person who's processing the file, who has no influence. And now they're hindering that person's ability to get the job done, right? And I know this is a little bit of a tangent, but
Mhm.
I had to call them and set the expectation and say, look, listen, I know you're calling them after hours. I know you're calling me after hours. I know that you and these 4 other parties are extremely nervous about this. I need you to trust me. And by calling them 3 times a day, you slow their ability to get your loan done. It's hurting your progress, right? And it, regardless of the amount of stress it adds to them, which also isn't fair, it hurts you to do that, right? And I said, I added another thing. I was like, if all those parties are going to continue to do that, I'm going to cut off access to them, and you're going to talk with me only. And now you add another layer of a person trying to communicate with them. So here's what's going to happen. And so then what's the solution? The solution is at the end of every single day, I will call you and I'll give you an update as to where we are.
And then work is done.
And it's done. And it gave them the confidence that it's going to get taken care of. They knew what to expect, right? And so I sort of do the same thing personally as well, which is I have to cut these fires off and put some barrier between it. And for some reason now, I always knew that was what I needed to do. You know, you got your gurus that are like, you know, say these things, cut it off. It was impossible for me for a long time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But for some reason in this part of my development,
sometimes you gotta experience
I'm able to do it now. And there's no like thing mantra that I practiced for like, that I said to myself.
It happens in real time.
It happens in real time. And those kind of things aren't bad, but I don't have any advice in terms of like, tell yourself I'm not going to bring this home 50 times a day. Like that isn't what I did. I just lived through it and developed to where like I truly partition it. It's not a thing because it can't be a thing because my family's more important.
Yeah. Here's the most important thing I've done besides cutting my workload down to 3 days. I give myself 7 things to do every day. And that includes working out. That includes spending time with my family. So really 5 things to do work-wise.
Yeah.
So whether that's talking to coaching clients, knocking that out, creating content, knocking that out, talking to my contractors about rehab deals or whatever, finding more deals, all of that fits in. Whatever I had to do, I create the schedule the day before, and I make sure I knock out 7 things the next day, and I clip it. So that's how I'm able to cut it off. So like today was content creation day, right? And I kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone. I went and checked all the rehab, right? And we shot a video, and we, that's content creation and checking on the rehab at the same time. Right? So some of that stuff you could, because what I do, content creation and real estate is what I actually do for a living.
Yeah.
I can mix the 2 and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So that's why I love what I do, man.
Yeah, that's great.
So,
but one thing you brought up was like, you have a creative mind when you're with your family, something comes up and you start thinking about it. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah, that's
right.
gonna happen.
I mean, if I think about bringing work home, it's like there's a certain stress that comes with the work that you do. And if I think about when people say, do you bring work home with you? Do you bring the weight of that stress to work, from work home? And does it affect your family life because of that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's something where...
Speaking of which, how would you say that affects your kids then, man? So like, I know we spoke a little bit about this, but like when you were building your business.
Yeah.
Because I know for me, I'm 43. I spent pretty much all my 20s and probably half of my 30s, man, grinding. Like grinding, and I'm not saying that my relationship with my kids were affected, but I'm a perfectionist, man. I always try to do better. None of us are perfect, but I always try to be better. I thought, my kids will probably say I'm the greatest father in the world, but which all kids will probably say.
Yeah.
But personally, I think I could have been there spend a lot more time with my older daughters. Like you said, my younger kids get more attention than what my older daughters were able to get.
You're not working
because I'm not working as much. You know what I mean? How about you?
Well, yeah. So it's pretty obvious right now, at least in this season of life. So I did a number of different things through my, early adulthood. Played some music, and then I was in education, and then I had the twins. So when the twins were 2, I made a complete career change from going toward, school leadership, right? So principal, that kind of direction,
Okay.
into the mortgage business. And I was in Nashville. I didn't know anybody. I'm not from there.
Mm.
And it was a self-gen job, right? So I had to rely on referral partners to send business to me to be able to do loans. So I had to create referral partners from nothing, right? And at this point, my kids are 2. They're twins. I'm in a city I haven't met anyone. I just cashed out my retirement to fund the next 6 months of my life. And I had 6 months to get on track, right? And so I felt like I was kind of behind the buck. But I knew that I was entering into an industry where there's a lot of potential. So
you went all in.
Well, you burn the boats. You know, they say that it's like,
Hey,
you're on an island.
We spoke about this.
Gone,
Man.
right?
You already know how I feel
Right.
about it. I went all in.
Yeah.
I was, I lost everything 2 times.
Yeah.
I had more losses than wins, and even the small wins. See, the biggest thing is the smaller wins, in my case, take care of my life, right?
Yeah.
But I might lose 100 times before I get that win.
That's right.
And that's what people have to understand that when it comes to being a business owner, you have to be willing to burn the bridges.
You have to. You have to.
You got to go all in. And if not, you can't go halfway, because if you do, it ain't gonna have the same result, man.
So I did that, right? And so that required 10 hours a day. And then when I get home in that industry, right? And again, I'm not good at setting expectations, right? Because I'm there,
at this time.
right? Yeah. And so I'm working 9 to 10 hours a day. And then once I get home, I've got realtors who I need business, right? And I think the way to do that is to do whatever they want, right? Which is fair. I mean, there's a reality to that job, right? And that's part of it too. So I'm not trying to say cut off everyone and say I work from 9 to 5, because when you're a loan officer and it's self-gen, that's not how the job works, right? It's an all the time. You are available always, because if they've got a client need a pre-approval because they're going to go put an offer on a house, you got to be ready now, right? And so I was answering phone calls at night, and then even during the weekends. Now they're looking at homes, right? And they need pre-approvals for this home, because they're going to, right? And so you got to be ready as well. And so that particular job description is a lot harder to create balance. It can happen, but it's harder to do. But that being said, I look back at that time, and I was so focused on the business that, and I didn't realize it until just recently, that I feel kind of guilty because I was at the house, I was there, but I'm not completely convinced I was there completely.
That's how I've had that feeling.
Kids, right?
I know exactly how you feel.
And I know that now more because I'm in a different situation now, a different role. I'm better at setting expectations. I know how to be really, really efficient with creating and effective at creating clean files really quickly and moving them on, which now my time is spent on other activities that are greater activities. But I'm not, but now I get to spend my mornings with my 5-year-old, and it's completely different. And I appreciate it, and it's amazing, and it's fulfilling. And the thing, forget about how I feel about it. I feel like I wasn't the same dad with my kids who are 9 right now when they were his age as I am with the little one now.
You know how I got through that, and it made me feel better. And again, my kids don't complain about it. I spend a ton of time with them now. Right. Yeah. But to be honest with you, man, how I got over that guilt. And I'm not saying that this is the answer, but I just bought them anything they wanted, and that's not the right way to handle it. Really, they're looking for time. They don't care about material things, man. At the end of the day, but I was feeling guilty about that for a while. Even spending time with my wife.
Well, I mean, a present here and then. I mean, it helps a little bit. No, I'm joking.
I wasn't getting them I wasn't getting them any and everything.
No, but I completely get you. And
I thought that would solve a problem for me, but in reality, it never filled that void. So I needed to figure out how I can again, I've always been there.
Yeah.
Always, right? But I might be physically there, but I'm not mentally there.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm absent in that regard because I'm focused on work. I felt guilty about that for a long time, man. So now what I realize is just, they're not looking for material things. They're looking for, if I just give them 5 minutes, hey, how did your day go today?
Yeah.
They just want to talk.
Yeah.
Or let's go for a walk.
Yeah.
Or so I'll make sure to make it a point to do that now. My daughter, she does I told you my wife and I do salsa dancing. That's the time I have with my wife. My daughter, on the same day, she does drumming. I'm not able to go with her all the time, but Alyssa takes drumming lessons.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she likes when I go with her. So now I'm gonna take drumming lessons. Support. You know what I mean? I'm gonna do it.
Heck yeah, that's awesome.
So that's the time that I'm gonna have with her. My other daughter, and in fact today's Thursday, she has tennis practice at 5:30. So we hired a tennis coach, a world-renowned tennis coach. She's played in the Playboy Mansion and all that stuff.
That's awesome.
Wow. And then my other kids, they do gymnastics, all three of them.
Yeah.
But I just make sure I'm present at that. Cut off the phones. I have clients calling sometimes. I'll just, no slight to my clients, but sometimes when I don't pick up the phone, I'm with my family.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
It's a part of mine.
But I think about that too, and that I feel guilty about it as well. But I also look back at that point in time, and when you have a goal that you need to hit, there, like, nothing else can get in the way of it. And the thing is, I didn't do the work for my own satisfaction.
You did it for your family.
Exactly.
That's right.
And that's
Absolutely.
the thing. It's like,
that's the way I look at it.
It's not so I can go, go flash stuff at the bar by myself and be the big guy. It's like, I know I have a responsibility to the people I care the most about.
People.
Right.
I tell people that all the time, man. The reason why I do everything I do is for somebody else.
Right. And I think about this too. We talk about the idea of work-life balance, and as a business owner, you want to do that. This is going to be a little bit different, but there are a lot of people out there that work 12-hour days, and they're not business owners, they're employees, right?
That's a fact.
Right. And I think about that, right? And I'm like, man, there are people out there that are
really,
working 12-hour days, and they don't have the responsibility that business owners do, so they don't have the weight of it. But what they do have, in order to provide for their families,
they got to work multiple jobs.
They have to work multiple jobs
or more hours.
And they have less time with their families. As a business owner, you have the ability to grind and create something for yourself that you can create. That you can create partition, of time, right?
You grind for a short period.
You grind for a short period of time for a better end. Now, if you're on a path where you're an employee, whether it be construction or that's
spending your whole life there.
You're spending your whole life there doing it, and even those guys probably look back and like, yeah, I was a great dad.
The benefit of that, though, the benefit of having, and I'm not saying because I've never had a 9-to-5 job ever. Right. All I know is being an entrepreneur. My whole life.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can see the benefit in getting a salary. You get to cut the work off when you get home. You don't have to think about it. But is that really true?
I've found, and this is just what it is. I found that a lot of people work harder for employers than they do for themselves. Right? When you train agents or anything like that, the hard part for some of them, like probably my nugget of advice, 30 minutes today. Just 30 minutes a day. Think of your business. Think about how to expand it. Think of how to, change where you are. Just giving it a full 30 minutes. Because a lot of times people go to work, and unfortunately, a lot of people steal time from work. But
that's a fact.
But in this world of constant scrolling on social media and constant this, constant that, you might go to work for 12 hours and you might be working for 4. You might be working for 5 or 6. And depending on what the job is, if it's a physical labor job, then there's no choice but to take the work home, because you take the arthritis home. You take all of the physical ailments that come into place with overusing your body, which I know what that's all about for sure. But then if it's mental, I remember my mom used to work at the post office, and that the reputation is that they'll go postal, right? You'd be amazed at how being like around a subset of people so often, that because you're spending more hours with them awake, that you can't help but take work home to a certain extent, because they're like an extended family, and all the things going on is like an extended family. So I think it's, work-life balance is really important. And it's one thing that, in order to create it, you have to realize what your priority is. And you also have to become really good at what you do in order to create work-life balance, because you have to work smarter, not harder. And the smarter you work, the less you have to work, right? The harder you work is probably because you're not like using your intellect to shorten your processes and to scale down or do whatever you need to do, and organizing and all those different things. And so I think that's, one of the things that, I always try to preach to, my agents is, first thing I want you to do is take time and educate yourself on anything that you want to go into. Like if there's a niche and you say, hey, I want to help people with retirement income, become a master at learning everything that you can about it. Social Security, what's the gap between this, withdrawal rates, all this other stuff. And then when you've done that, you'll be surprised at how much easier your process is. Because if you get a new question, and this used to happen when I was at Medicare, the owner of the firm, he would tell me sometimes to train the other agents, because he said, man, DeAndre runs into the most ridiculous stuff ever I have to feel, right? He was like, he's the one guy who would find somebody who was in the military, but somehow didn't get his DD-214 and, needs his VA and all this other stuff. And he'd be like the one guy who would actually take the extra mile to say, well, let me figure out how I can assist this person. And so that took a lot of time when I would do stuff like that, because I just came into a field that I did not know anything about. And and of course, the more and more situations that catalog of, events was like, oh, this is just second nature to me.
Yeah.
Now, and as things become second nature to you, your time, you get a lot of it back, because you're not studying trying to figure out problems anymore. And I think that helps with not bringing work home as much, because normally if you bring in work home, you're trying to figure out something that you couldn't do during the hours.
Right? Yeah.
Right? And so
that's why I give myself tasks, man.
Yeah.
Knock them out, and then I don't have to think about them anymore.
Yeah. That's a good idea too.
So actually, we got a fiddler, and I'm listening to you right here, and I'm listening to your voice. It kind of reminds me of somebody named Life Jennings.
Oh no!
Let me.
What's that? Hey, you.
I'm so glad I didn't bring my fiddle today.
If y'all didn't know, man, DeAndre is a singer.
Oh my!
Let me hear something, bro.
Hello, folks. How y'all doing out there?
Let me hear something.
We
put him on the spot.
I ain't got no penitentiary time. I ain't got no I don't know, man. I'm trying to think, man.
Let me hear some Jagged Edge. Also, you know what? Let me hear some John Legend, man.
Yeah.
Did you hear some John Legend? Okay. Let me see. So, baby, since the day you came into my life, you made me realize that we were born to fly. You show me every day new possibilities. You prove my fantasy of what love can really be. Let's go to a place that only lovers go, to a spot that we'll never know. To the top of the clouds we'll flow, ting away, yeah. Ooh, it feels so crazy. Oh, this love is blazing. Baby, we're so high, walking on cloud nine.
You know what that remind me of?
Yeah.
That boy good. Coming to America. That boy good.
Oh my goodness. Put me on the
Good
spot
stuff,
like
good
that.
stuff,
Put me
man.
on the spot like
Great
that.
episode, everybody. Leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about this.
That was a love song. Love your family, man. Stop calling me trying to divorce your people and trying to figure out how you can do infinite banking, man. You know, do the right thing by your folks, man. Don't be asking me how you can put a HELOC on the house after you left your husband or your wife, man. Stop doing it.
That's right.
Thanks.
That was a good episode, man.
That was great.